Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Jayden Bryce Show. The show where we talk about the hottest topics in sports. I'm your host, Jayden, and I'm glad to be finally back live. It has been a hot minute. I've had a lot going on, but I have decided as of today to get back to doing live shows. I'm going to start me a schedule, and I'm going to be going live multiple times a week. Today, got a juicy show. We're going to talk a lot about March Madness. You've seen from the thumbnail, the headline of the show today is about the North Carolina Tar Heels and Hubert Davis possibly getting let go or resigned or fired. Then we're going to talk about Duke, my Duke Blue Devils, and them possibly being overlooked by everyone in the NCAA. And then we're going to talk about some topics in the NFL. Jaxon Smith and Njiba getting a contract extension. Travis Kelce signing a 3-year deal and what I think about that. And I'm going to react to the Jaylen Waddle trade that occurred last week. And I'm giving my thoughts on that. But before we get into it, make sure you guys subscribe, like the podcast, check the podcast out on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, this is where I would love to start. We're going to save the Hubert Davis storyline for the next topic, but we're going to hit on Duke just to start everything off. And I wanted to talk about Duke because the headlines when Selection Sunday occurred last week, the main focus was on the idea of Duke being in the East region and getting a tough draw in comparison to the other number one overall seeds because Duke was the consensus number one team in the NCAA tournament, meaning that they were the best number one seed in the whole NCAA tournament in comparison to Michigan, Arizona, and I cannot think from the top of my head who was the other number one seed in the other region. But you get what I'm trying to say here. And the focal point has been, it was Florida, who actually just lost on Sunday night. But on top of that, everyone has been discussing about Duke being the first team to get put out. And against Siena on Thursday, that looked like that was about to come true. And the idea of Duke and the way they have played basketball all season, they are a second half team. And during the Siena game, I told myself Siena was playing well, but I kept on saying Duke's a second half team. Duke is a second half team. But boy, as the minutes waned on, I got super scared. But they ended up clawing out a win. And on Saturday against TCU, specifically in the first half, it was definitely shades of the Siena game. They're only up 4. But Duke did what Duke did all year. But in this game against TCU, in comparison to the Siena game, they were way more dominant in the second half and actually ended up winning by 20 plus points against the Horned Frogs. And why do I want to talk about Duke in general? Well, I want to give Duke a lot of credit. And I'm not saying that because I am a Duke fan, but just for the idea of the current college basketball. You can tell I'm talking too much about college football, but the current college basketball landscape and how things have shaped out over the last couple days in March Madness. Because Duke, to me, has been super undervalued. And I said that, and I say that, to say this because of the previous things that I've stated. They're in a hard region. Everyone has said that. People has picked them to be the first team to get put out in the NCAA tournament. You got all these blue blood schools in their region. You got UConn. You got St. John's with Rick Pitino. You got Tom Izzo, Michigan State. You even had Florida that they possibly could. No, not Florida. Not Florida. I was thinking of another team that they could possibly have to go up against in their own region. UConn, I think, is who I was talking about. But what has Duke done? Duke has been under the microscope. Specifically, I'm saying this when it pertains to media. You got all these other teams, Darius Acuff and the Razorbacks being a focal point in the media, Kansas and Bill Self. Oh, Kansas was the other team I was thinking about. That was in the other Blue Blood school. Kansas and Bill Self and Darren Peterson, that whole fiasco they had going on. St. John's and Rick Pitino, how well Rick Pitino has been, led this team to the Sweet 16, and how they are currently the favorites to be in the Final Four in this region, even above Duke, and being a lot of people liking, because Duke is favored currently right now -6.5. A lot of people are loving, not even liking, they are loving the idea of St. John's taking St. John's in the betting line +6.5 to upset Duke. People are loving that line on Friday night. But this is the reason why people have to put a little bit more respect on Duke, because this is not where you want a Duke basketball team. We're talking about a Duke basketball team who has been the #1 team all year for the majority of the season. And you find them in a spot in comparison to last year where they were the favorites to win it all. Clear and large by many people across the media, but it's different this year. This year, if I remember correctly, through a 20-game span, they had a better record than what they did last year with Cooper Flagg and everyone else. This year, they're not the focal point. They are the underdogs. So all the pressure is off of their backs. Cameron Bruiser, haven't really heard much about him in the NCAA tournament. That isn't because his play has had a precipitous drop-off. It's just because people have been focused on him and he hasn't been able to adapt, but he's still been able to play well and make enough plays, getting a lot of and-ones in order for his team to win. But two key players that I think we really undervalued as well is Patrick Gumba and Caleb Foster. Specifically, Caleb Foster. Patrick Gumba was back against TCU, and his presence was very much felt. But for me, Caleb Foster has been pretty undervalued, specifically on the defensive end of the floor. Caden Boozer, not Caleb. Caden Boozer has been a liability on the defensive end. He has stepped up his play in the last couple of games since he's had to take over the lead role with the absence of Caleb Foster, but it is reported that John Shire has said Caleb Foster has an outside chance of playing on Friday. I don't think he does, but if I do think if Duke gets into the Elite Eight, I think Caleb Foster is going to be available to play. But they are super valuable, and they are two key players, Gumba and Foster, who are the secret weapons to Duke possibly winning it all. But I personally feel like, in comparison to Michigan and countless other teams across the NCAA tournament currently in the Sweet 16, I think this team's ceiling is the Final Four. I do not see a scenario where they get to the championship game. I would love it. It would not surprise me if they do. But the only way I see that even happening, the only way I see them even getting to the Final Four is if Caleb Foster isn't wearing a Duke jersey, leading them into the Elite Eight, and them getting past the Sweet 16 with Rick Pitino and St. John's. It's an interesting matchup. I think it favors Duke in a way because St. John's is the worst three-point shooting team left in the tournament, and that has been Duke's Achilles heel during these two games against Siena and TCU. Siena was 5 for 11 at halftime from the three-point line. I love this matchup for Duke. I don't love it in the sense to where St. John's is a bigger ball club and they play physical defense on the same, not as the same caliber of Duke, but darn close to it. So that is a pretty even matchup. And Duke being favored by 6 points by Vegas does say a lot. Now, the general media is going to sit around and make you think that Duke is on major upset alert. But let's not be fooled. I love Duke against St. John's, and I do think Duke is going to go in there and get a win. And if Caleb Foster is available, and even if he plays 10 minutes, I really, really, really do. And this is super unbiased. I really do love Duke's chances to go in and compete at a super high level. Hubert Davis, he has been the talk of the town pretty much most of the weekend in March Madness. More than likely the number one storyline of the weekend. North Carolina, since Hubert Davis has taken over the reins from Roy Williams, it's been pretty much a mixed bag. Some good, but in my opinion, this is going to be a totally unbiased take, a whole lot of more bad. Hubert Davis, in his first season, with Roy Williams recruits, he took the Carolina Tar Heels to a national championship. At the time, around everyone in the media landscape, people were looking at Hubert Davis to be the next ultimate successor and head coach at the University of North Carolina. And since then, that ideology, that thinking has not come remotely close to fruition. It has been a rocky last 4 years for Hubert Davis. The year after, he goes to the national championship. Mind you, in that national championship game, he choked a 15-point lead. In that very next season, they were the AP number one team going into the season, and they missed the tournament. The first team to ever do that. The year after that, bounce back year for the most part. Won the ACC, number one seed in the NCAA tournament, and they fall to Alabama in the Sweet 16. Little disappointing. And the last two seasons, when you think that all Hubert Davis could do is ascend, sadly, he continued to descend. No pun intended. In the fourth and fifth season, last year, they had a second round exit. And this year, in the first round of 64, they lose to VCU in overtime. And this has created a lot of uproar around the media. It was reported, if I remember correctly, I can't remember if it was the chancellor of the school, but I know the athletic director was present in the tunnel once Carolina lost and were exiting the arena. And Hubert Davis did not, by any means or imagination, have a wonderful press conference after the loss against VCU. It was embarrassing. It was not a good look whatsoever. And when the athletic director felt that he needed to make a move after that game, did that press conference not influence that idea even more? Should Carolina move on from Hubert Davis? I can't definitively say yes. But I'm going to argue as to why it should be heavily considered. And this is the reason why. And they were talking about this on First Take yesterday morning. And I'm going to double down on it. North Carolina, in comparison to the other schools and Blue Blood schools, I'm not even going to take it that far. I'm not going to compare Carolina to Kentucky, Gonzaga, Kansas, and everyone else. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to just talk about the school that they are 8 miles from, my team, their rival, the best rivalry in college basketball in the history of basketball, in my opinion, across the pro and collegiate level, is Duke and Carolina. And when I was thinking about this Hubert Davis situation, the one thought that came into my head that I could not get away from is the idea that Carolina under Hubert Davis has been overshadowed by Duke and out-recruited. Jon Scheyer, in the same timeline that Hubert Davis has been there, has had the top recruiting class 4 out of the 5 years he's been there. He's had the Cooper Flags. He's had the Filipowskis. He's had the Jared McCains. He's had the Boozer twins. He's had all of these phenomenal players go into Cameron Indoor Stadium and play for Jon Scheyer. That hasn't been the case for Hubert Davis. Hubert Davis was able to take Roy Williams' recruits and take that team to a national championship. But what has he done with his own? This is the first year he finally got a 5-star in Caleb Wilson. It is reported as of right now he's got multiple 5-stars coming next year. But even in the first year under Caleb Wilson, and this is the reason why you really can't put that much blame on losing in the first round, because you didn't have Caleb Wilson for the last couple games of the season because he broke his wrist. But the reason why it's such a tough question is because in this game against VCU, you choked away a 19-point lead. That's inexcusable across any factor, Caleb Wilson or not. It does not matter. You choked a 19-point lead in the NCAA tournament first round of March Madness. That is not going to be a tough pill to swallow for any athletic director. Specifically, a prestigious collegiate franchise / organization, historically great, blue blood school such as the University of North Carolina. This school eats, sleeps, and breathes college basketball. It is their lifeline. It is their blood. I know this for a fact because I live in the state. I know how much Carolina basketball, the Tar Heels, mean to this state. Not only to this state, but what they mean to the sport of college basketball as a franchise, as a blue blood. And they currently are not living to the standard under Hubert Davis as the Carolina Tar Heels. When you think about Tar Heels, you think about Dean Smith. Think about Roy Williams. Think about all those national championships, 6 of them. When you think about Hubert Davis currently, all you do is think about losing, not being good enough, not having good recruits, not having a good roster. It is reported by inside scoopers throughout college basketball right now that Hubert Davis didn't even want the job. He was pressured into getting it because Roy Williams handed him the keys to the car. What was he supposed to say? No. It's a tough spot for the University of North Carolina. And over the weekend on Sunday specifically, it was reported that a decision is going to be made in the coming days. But would I be shocked that they move on from Hubert Davis? His contract, they were going to have to eat some money over the next couple of years. I think he's guaranteed for, if they were to let him go, he was signed through 2029 and 2030. So over the next 5 years, they're going to eat $5 million for his base salary if they let him go for the next couple of years. But the athletic director for Carolina's got a tough decision to make. He has 2 5-stars coming his way. And do you bet on that and give Hubert Davis another chance with 2 5-stars? And granted, Caleb Wilson this year was Carolina's first 5-star since 2015, I think, if I remember correctly. So the athletic director for Carolina has a lot of questioning to make. And it's going to be a tough decision because if they move on from Hubert Davis, it is not likely those 2 5-stars stay. In no way, form, or fashion. So Hubert Davis is on the hot seat in Carolina. And it would not surprise many people across the media landscape if Carolina makes a decision to move on from the reins of Hubert Davis. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, star wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, transitioning over to some NFL things, getting away from March Madness. We'll discuss more over the coming days heading into the big weekend coming up, specifically Duke versus St. John's. But Jaxon Smith-Njigba, yesterday, we knew this was going to happen. We were pretty much just waiting on the news to come after the news came out roughly last week that they'd picked up his fifth-year option, him and Devon Witherspoon. But yesterday, Jaxon Smith-Njigba signed a contract to make him the highest paid wide receiver in the history of the NFL. The official number here is a 4-year, $168.6 million contract with $120 million worth of guarantees, with an average base salary of $42.15 million a year. And if you think about it from this landscape, since picking up JSN's fifth-year option, that spreads this contract out to roughly only $36 million, or was it? Yeah, it was 36. Was it 36 or 32? Might be 32. I can't quite remember. It might be it might be 32. $32 million a year. So then by picking up that fifth-year option, it actually spreads the money out pretty well. But we want to first just congratulate Jaxon Smith-Njigba. This was very much deserved. It was his third year, and in those 3 years, he's been to the Pro Bowl twice. This year, he was a first-team All-Pro. He won NFL Offensive Player of the Year, and he helped lead the Seattle Seahawks to win the Super Bowl with a questionable quarterback at the time. And he was the catalyst for the reason why the offense was as successful as they were. And I got to give him a lot of credit. I love Ohio State. I'm a big Ohio State football guy. So it is without a shadow of a doubt that I knew Jaxon Smith-Njigba had the capabilities to be good, but I have to chew my own words here. I never felt like that Jaxon Smith-Njigba was going to be capable of being a number one receiver at any point. I guess because he was overshadowed by Marvin Harrison at the time at Ohio State. It's just, to me, I never felt like Jaxon Smith-Njigba was going to be able to be a catalyst and catapult a wide receiver room. I never thought that. And you got to give John Schneider and the Seattle Seahawks credit, Mac McDonald. They moved on from DK Metcalf, a guy who they signed to a new contract, pretty good wide receiver, made multiple Pro Bowls. But that's a gutsy move to pivot off that guy and bet on this kid here. And it turned out to be the best decision that they could have ever made. Because they saw the potential in this kid to be the number one receiver in the NFL. And there's no way with what DK Metcalf was getting paid that they were going to be able to make Jaxon Smith-Njigba the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. So that is where you got to give John Schneider, Mac McDonald, everyone associated with the Seattle Seahawks a ton of credit for seeing this gem and making the right financial decisions and getting this deal done for Jaxon Smith-Njigba and making him the highest paid wide receiver. And I've seen multiple people across media say it. No nonsense. This kid has no drama. He just comes in. He works hard. He's a great individual. And this is a type of guy who you invest this type of money to. No question about his off-the-field personality. And when he's on the field, he is available and ready to work. And there's been no sort of drama in the media regarding when they were going to get this deal done for him. So hats off to everyone associated with this deal in the Seattle Seahawks organization. Now, a couple of things that we got to really think about now that we know that Jaxon Smith-Njigba is the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. What about Puka Nacua? Is there a world where Puka Nacua is possibly going to get higher than that? I don't think so. I think it's reported as of right now, and this was an article that came out last week, that the Rams are not in a rush to sign Puka Nacua. What about the wide receiver market? Is it getting as crazy as the quarterback market? As of right now, the running back and the tight end market, in comparison to the wide receiver market, is 2 times as much. Meaning, the wide receiver market right now is currently worth double the amount as the running back in the tight end position. So what does that mean? It may come to a world where teams might start questioning the way they're going to go in the draft and pertains to drafting wide receivers. Because the wide receiver market is heading towards the quarterback market. These guys are starting to get paid a premium. So in free agency, there's not going to be a scenario where a guy coming off of his rookie contract and looking for a second contract, I don't see a world in the future where there's going to be outside teams willing to invest that type of money in these guys. Obviously, when most of these deals get done with these highest paid wide receiver contracts, it is guys who were developed in-house. The Dak Prescotts, the Jordan Loves, the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allens, all of these guys are developed in-house. But there's definitely going to be no scenario in the future where I see outside sources of wide receivers getting paid this type of money. What about his draft partner in the first round, Devin Witherspoon? What is Seattle going to do about him? I think they're going to make him the highest paid cornerback in the NFL at some point. They probably wish they would have moved on that coin a little bit earlier after Trent McDuffie just signed that $32 million contract that he got. And another player. And Colin Cowherd took this idea away from me when I was wanting to talk about JSN. What about George Pickens? Does this make the George Pickens situation in Dallas a whole lot more complicated? Me personally, I don't, because there's no way you're investing $40 million into George Pickens because they're not even close to the caliber of the same player. Off the field, there is no issues with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. There was a whole storyline just this past season where George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb were late getting to the team hotel on time because they were out gambling in Vegas. It was a wild story. Also on the field, Jaxon Smith-Njigba is not prone to have a so-called quote-unquote 21st century term to use here, a crash out and cause a penalty or make stupid boneheaded decisions to negatively affect the team on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. I don't know why I even say Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. It's about to be an everyday league the way the NFL is making the schedule nowadays. But that's not remotely close. I think George Pickens is probably going to get close to $28 million. And I think that's his ceiling because I say that because that's what T. Higgins signed for. JSN is a number one receiver. George Pickens is a number two. I can strongly say this. There's no way in any world that anyone would invest wide receiver one type money into George Pickens. I can say that without a shadow of a doubt. But we got to give a shout out to Jaxon Smith-Njigba. You got to be happy for all these guys getting their bag, and he is definitely deservedly so. Someone else who got a bag, and I can say it shocked me when I read it because I had to do a double take, and I was like, isn't this guy talking about wanting to retire like for the last 3 years, and he signs a 3-year contract? Yeah, we talked about it in the title of the thumbnail, and I foreshadowed it in the title of the podcast. Travis Kelce, yesterday, signed a 3-year deal with the Chiefs. Originally, a couple of weeks ago, during free agency, it was reported that he signed a 1-year deal for $12 million. After, for the last couple of years, he has been questioning wanting to come back and play football. So we all thought, hey, sign him for a year, finish out the Cinderella run season on a phenomenal career, arguably the best tight end to ever lace him up and catch the pigskin. Well, we kind of got through a curveball yesterday. So it was reported that Travis Kelce signed a 3-year, $54 million contract. And after doing some different digging and looking around the league with Sport Track and all these people who are investing in these contracts, I'm still confused just a little bit. But what everyone is saying right now is that this contract is still set up to be a 1-year, $12 million deal with incentives. But I think they're doing right by Travis Kelce. This is just my theory here on this. I'm not in any way, form, or fashion. I am not an expert when it comes to these contracts. I am not even close. So do not quote me on what I say. I am just coming up with a theory here. I think they're just doing right by Travis Kelce, signing him to 3 years, making him feel comfortable about wanting to play till he is 40, because he's currently 37 years old, and this contract is spacing him out to play until he is 40. But I do not, in no way, form, or fashion, feel as if Travis Kelce is going to finish out this contract. I don't. I do not. And again, I don't know how this contract stuff works. This contract is set up still as a 1 year, $12 million contract. So you do with that information as you will. But I'm telling you right now, I do not believe that Travis Kelce is going to play through this contract. I do not see it. Even in the 3 years, I don't even know what the guarantees is. Max, I say max, he plays 2 years. This guy has been muling retirement for the last 3 seasons. There's no way for me to believe 3 years ago he's contemplating retirement, then he goes on to play 6 more years. I don't believe it. I just don't. The statement is there. Many people have said, man, once you speak about retirement, it shows. It has shown for the last couple of years with Travis Kelce. Specifically this past one. There's been multiple games where he's dropped some key passes, made some boneheaded decisions and plays to negatively affect the Chiefs winning or losing ball games. The one that really particularly comes to mind was the Jacksonville Jaguars game, where Patrick Mahomes hits him right on the numbers, doesn't catch it clean, ball pops up, Devin Lloyd picks it off and takes it all the way to the house for a pick 6, and the Chiefs lose that ball game. So I do not see Travis Kelce playing more than 2 years. I just don't see it. Now getting away from the negatives, let's just shed some light on the positives. Travis Kelce still had 1,000 yards. I think there was a stat that they said on Colin Cowherd's show that Travis Kelce at his age is still having better statistical numbers than most wide receivers across the NFL. And let's not get it twisted. Just because I'm saying that I don't think that Travis Kelce is the same player that he used to be, I don't think he's the best tight end in the NFL currently. I would probably pick 2 or 3 other tight ends before I pick Travis Kelce. That's just my personal opinion. But let's not sugarcoat it. Travis Kelce is still a heck of a player. He's still great. He is still a future Hall of Famer, and he has value. I think he has value currently in this system as a red zone target for Patrick Mahomes when he's healthy. But this is the reason why this gets questionable. How do they maneuver their offense? I don't know if it's reported that it's reported that Patrick Mahomes is going to be ready week 1. I'm guessing that is still the case. But another thing that makes me question this move, how much do they truly trust their wide receiver core? I know they love Travis Kelce and they're going to do right by Travis Kelce, but at the end of the day, I don't think this organization trusts their wide receivers. Xavier Worthy, he's a gadget guy. Rashee Rice, he's got too many issues off the field. And he's also had a season-ending injury, major injury. So I think in this upcoming draft, because a lot of people were thinking they were going to get Jeremiah Love, but they got Kenneth Walker in free agency. So I would not be shocked if they draft a player like a wide receiver or, heck, even another tight end, the kid from Oregon. But I'm happy for Travis Kelce. I'm glad that has some urge to still play football. He's still a blessing to many people's eyes, specifically Chiefs fans, for continuing to see him on a football field. And the game's in a good place when Travis Kelce is playing football and having a Kansas City Chiefs uniform on. It is very, very more merrier in sports to be able to see a player finish out his career with the team that he started with. You don't love the stories like the Michael Jordans where he plays for the Bulls all these years and goes to the Wizards and it just doesn't seem right. And this has happened to a lot of players across the league. Jerry Rice leaves the Niners. He goes and plays for the Oakland Raiders, and I think he even played for one more team. Same thing with Randy Moss. Like all these players just flip-flopping teams towards the end of their career. You just don't love to see it. You would love to see it with this situation like Travis Kelce. You started off with this organization, and you're going to end it with this organization. That is the major positive that we can take out of this move when it pertains to Travis Kelce being back and signing a 3-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. Jaylen Waddle, last story for today. Jaylen Waddle last week got traded from the Miami Dolphins to the Denver Broncos. The Dolphins received the 30th, the 94th, and 130th pick, while the Broncos received they gave up a fourth round pick and Jaylen Waddle. The Broncos received a 4th round pick in Jaylen Waddle, excuse me. I kind of had it weird in my notes. First off, for the Denver Broncos side of things, A+ was a little rich for my liking for Jaylen Waddle. I think Jaylen Waddle was a good player. I wouldn't categorize him as great. I don't think, and this is the argument I have for Jaxon Smith and Njiba originally early on in his career. I do not see a scenario where Jaylen Waddle can be your number one option. I don't see him as a number one receiver. I think he is a great complementary number two, and I think that is why him and Tyreek Hill were so well and paired so well together. Now, I say that I don't love him as a number one receiver, but I think under a certain offense, when you have a star tight end, and I'm saying this because the reports earlier on last year at the trade deadline was that the Bills made an offer to get Jaylen Waddle, but they wouldn't give up that 1st round pick. So I think Jaylen Waddle under that system with a star quarterback like Josh Allen, and you have the Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox there, and you have Khalil Shakir and some security blankets alongside Keon Coleman, I would have liked that for Jaylen Waddle. I think it would have been a good move. But I think for this case, for Jaylen Waddle, I think it's the better move. Courtland Sutton is there. He's the number one guy, been there for multiple years. Really was a security blanket there in the playoffs for Bo Nix before he got tragically injured. And you're pairing him alongside Jaylen Waddle, who is a great target. He is a speedster. He is a guy who can get you over the top. And we're putting Jaylen Waddle in a receiving core that was already pretty good and kind of undervalued and underrated across the league with a play caller such as Sean Payton. Still a little rich for my liking, but they made the move. I think now they should have represented the AFC in the Super Bowl if Bo Nix was healthy. I firmly believe the Broncos would have made it to the Super Bowl if Bo Nix was healthy. So now that you add Jaylen Waddle, and they already had the 11th ranked offense in the NFL in regards to passing. So it's not like the passing game was a huge problem. So you're beefing that up alongside a defense who was only 5 sacks away from breaking the all-time sack record on defense in the history of the NFL. So without a shadow of a doubt, it seems to me that the Denver Broncos should be considered the favorites as of right now in the AFC to win the AFC Championship and more than likely represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Because when you look across all the other teams, Kansas City, how healthy is Mahomes going to be? You really never trust the Bills in any way, form, or fashion. The Ravens have a brand new coach, and currently they have the betting odds to 11.5 wins. I don't see that happening. A little too rich for my taste. Do you think the Patriots are going to have a drop-off? I do a little bit. So when you look around the AFC, well, why not the Broncos? You're going to get Bo Nix healthy. Sean Payton knows what he's doing. He's won a Super Bowl before. So you trust the Broncos with this move to be in a good position. Now, and pivoting to the Dolphins side of this, got to give credit to the Dolphins. It's not very easy for organizations to pivot off of players like they have. They released Tyreek Hill after his huge injury. I even think, injury or not, they were still more than likely going to make that decision the way the season ended. You do that. You pivot off Tua. You pivot off Jalen Phillips by trading him in this past year. You move off of Bradley Chubb. You don't re-sign him. You trade away Minka Fitzpatrick. You get rid of all these players. You're pretty much wiping the slate clean. But the one guy that you really have the feel for is Malik Willis. And it's been voiced across media over the last couple of days. I get it, but I got to really re-emphasize that. Talking about a guy, Malik Willis, who, when you were signing for a team, you were signing and looking for the opportunity to establish yourself as a top dog in the league. And I'm pretty sure when the owner and the GM and the head coach advertised this job, the quarterback one job, to Malik Willis, I'm pretty sure they told him, like, hey, man, you're going to have at least Jaylen Waddle. Like, you got to have somebody to throw the ball to. But that's not the case. Now, with these multiple first-round picks that the Dolphins have, what are they going to do for Malik Willis with that number 9 pick or that number 11 pick now? Does that turn into a Jordan Tyson or any of them other cats coming out of the wide receiver draft this year? This wide receiver draft is not good. It is not good. This is probably one of the worst wide receiver drafts that we've had in the last 10 years. It's pretty bad. There's no talent in any way, form, or fashion in the wide receiver position this year. But next year there will be Jeremiah Smith. So maybe in a couple years, this is definitely not going to be a 2 to 3 year rebuild like Malik Willis did sign up for in his contract. And that's something that we have to take into account too. We know when it comes to rebuilding a roster and rebuilding a team, specifically a team like the Dolphins, who have been allergic to prosperity, haven't won a playoff game in God knows how long, I don't even know. But they haven't won a Super Bowl in, 50 years? They won that Super Bowl when they were undefeated, in the 70s? It's been a long time. So we know with an organization that is allergic to prosperity, and they have been a laughingstock. They haven't been the Jets type bad and laughingstock, or the Browns. But man, they're not been great. That's just putting it lightly. So you don't see a scenario where this rebuild is going to be done in the 3 years that Malik Willis is signed for. So that's another argument to make. If you're Malik Willis, you knew the state of the franchise. You knew their background and their history and the way they run. There's no way they're magically going to snap their fingers this year in the 3 years in 2 years with all these draft picks and be back and popping with like they were when they had Tua and Tyreek and win 11, 12 games and have an argument to go on a little playoff run. That's just not going to happen. So you feel for Malik Willis just a little bit. I do see a scenario where more than likely with that first pick, even though a lot of people are mocking them a cornerback at 11, I probably see them going and getting a wide receiver because they need one. I don't know their current wide receiver depth chart as of right now, but I can firmly say that it doesn't look pretty, and that's just putting it lightly. So Jaylen Waddle is now a Denver Bronco. Love to move him alongside Courtland Sutton. That is going to be a entertaining watch. But you have reached the end of today's show. I hope you all enjoyed. I love being back live and talking to you guys and having the overlays and the pictures and all that going on with the broadcast. I'm going to get better about that. So I'm going to have that up and running in the foreseeable future. I'm probably going to go live twice a week. I think 3 days is just a little too much for me. A lot of high demand for somebody who just does all this on his own, So I'm going to do that. So the next show that we have, more NFL news. I think there's a couple storylines that came out today about the behind-the-scenes stuff when it comes to the Ravens and Max Crosby and that whole ordeal, what Dallas had to offer. That's an interesting article with that. So we're going to probably talk about that in the next show. And as well, more than likely, talk about the matchups of March Madness. So I don't know what day I will be live, but you guys will get notified in a timely manner. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys later on this week. Peace, love, and positivity always. Love y'all.